Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Star Flames. In this video, we're gonna talk about Mr. Jaylan Banks calling Fallon Pina a groomer and Fallon Pina clapping back with the groomer t-shirt, and in the background she had The Boy Is a Liar playing. Now, if you're not aware, basically a quick synopsis into Miss Fallon Pina's life, Jaylan Banks and Simon Guobadia. So Simon Guobadia and Fallon Pina, they were together, married for a few years. But according to Fallon, Simon Guobadia wasn't treating her right as a husband. According to Simon, Fallon Pina was just a narcissist, but Simon's mental games were too strong for Fallon, according to Simon, because Simon has Fallon Pina down as a narcissist who tried to control him, the man. And with Simon Guobadia and his, Nigerian culture, how he was cultured into the man being the leader of the household, Simon wanted that leadership and wanted to be respected in that manner. But I believe that both Simon and Fallon, both of them are narcissists, if you ask me. But anyway, Fallon was on The Real Housewives, and then we have Miss Portia Williams that came in, saw Fallon's life, and like, girl, this is a man you have, and you're playing around. This is what the man is giving you, and you're playing around. Girl, if you don't want him, I'll have him, right? Something like that, just the long and short of it. So on April of 2021, Fallon Pina and Simon Guobadia decided that they were officially going to part ways and, both of them divorced. But Fallon was seeing Jaylan Banks on the low. Now, also at the same time, we heard that Fallon was pregnant for Jaylan, later discovered that she was actually pregnant, and they have a daughter together. Now, it was back do you see how all of this plays out? It's as though the same way you get them, the same way you lose them. Back in April of this year, if not a bit earlier, Jaylan and Fallon announced that they were going to separate after Fallon had a miscarriage for Jaylan Banks. Now, they've separated, haven't heard anything about either party, because it appears as though each of them just decided to move on, and we thought that they moved on mutual terms. But during an interview, a podcast interview, Mr. Jaylan Banks is saying he was groomed by Fallon Pina and she was a narcissist. Now, to be very straightforward with you guys, I do believe that there was narcissism, but I don't believe that Fallon Pina groomed Jaylan Banks. I do believe that Jaylan Banks, fell for Fallon's Pina little pity party, little pity story. And I also believe that Jaylan Banks was also looking for an opportunity, because Jaylan Banks used to work with Simon Guobadia and Fallon Pina. Jaylan Banks was well aware that Fallon Pina was a married woman. So I believe that both parties had their role to play. Do I believe that narcissism was involved? Yes, it was. But with Jaylan Banks calling this woman a groomer, I believe that was definitely, not the honest truth. He saw it as that, and maybe that is what he's telling himself based on what Fallon Pina had told to him and how he was led to believe what she said. But let's take a look at a snippet of this interview of Mr. Jaylan Banks calling Fallon a groomer and how Fallon clapped back at him. Very narcissistic. Let's get into that.
Let us know how this thing first began.
I was groomed.
What do you mean by that?
I was groomed, and the way she made it seem as if he was doing her wrong. Mm-hmm. And then when I come to find out, I'm on the other side now. So it's a narcissist. She groomed me and got me together with telling me like he's doing this to me, and I felt sad for her and being a
Now, guys, I do believe that everyone in this situation is a hot goddamn mess. Fallon, Jaylan, Simon, Portia, I believe that everyone was cheating on everyone. Because if you guys remember Jessica Cakes came on Tasha K Live and she said that she was seeing Simon Guobadia. And around the same time, it was alleged that Simon was messing with Portia while still with Fallon, and Fallon was also messing with Jaylan. So I believe that everyone played a hot goddamn mess in this role. Secondly, I do believe that Fallon was going through some stuff with Simon, and I believe that because Jaylan was already in their circle, and Jaylan appeared to be so caring about her emotions and what she was going through, I do believe that Fallon took that as an area of opportunity, to get Jaylan to throw her a pity party. But at the same time, Jaylan was quite aware that Fallon was a married woman. He was aware of her status. So Jaylan is also an adult. There is a difference between being sorry for someone, showing support for that individual, and just going into that individual's relationship. I don't believe that Jaylan was groomed as she is saying. And as the internet is, going in on Fallon because Fallon clapped back and Fallon is wearing that t shirt. And while she poses with the t shirt, the boy is a liar is playing in the background. And people on the shade room are saying this is a typical groomer's behavior. But the reality is, we have to think from a logical standpoint. Yes, there are female groomers. Women do groom men. But let's look at fact. The fact is, Jaylan was conscious of the situation that he was getting himself into. Jaylan was also aware that not because Fallon is telling you all these things, it doesn't mean that everything is that she's telling you is how she's telling you. On the other hand, Jaylan could see that Simon was also playing games with Fallon as well. And Simon had a history of wives who had similar complaints, well, ex-wives, as Fallon. So Jaylan could have made a conscious decision to say, I'm going to be supportive to you and I'm going to follow you to therapy. I'm going to take myself out of the equation, but I'll drive you to your therapist and I'll be there to provide you with some moral support, right? But he wanted an opportunity as well. When Jaylan got the opportunity, what Fallon expected was for Jaylan to take over her family and the two of them build together starting from scratch. Jaylan then realized that Fallon's burden was too much and he was too young for so much because he had his entire life ahead of him. And he's even said it before they got separated. He's saying that he has to take care of the entire family. When I heard him saying that, I said this relationship was over because Jaylan is not mentally mature to deal with what Fallon wants him to. And as such, I believe that they both got involved way too fast. They did not take the time to weigh the pros and the cons. I believe that Fallon also wanted to one up on Simon to say, look, I got your woman. You thought you were this big boss, but I also got your woman, right? And I do believe that Fallon wanted to prove to Simon that I can get a younger, hotter guy and we're going to build our lives, and we can make it. Because the reality is, if Jaylan had shared the same vision as Fallon, they could actually build from scratch and make something successful of themselves. But you could tell that Fallon was pushing, she was earning, Jaylan was behind, still behind, because Jaylan had one goal which did not align with Fallon. And I believe that coupled with the burden of Fallon wanting Jaylan to, be at a particular stage of maturity, it crumbled him, and it felt like Fallon was pouring unwanted burden on him. I do believe that Fallon is somewhat of a narcissist, but not a groomer. I do believe that Fallon wanted to be in control, but not a controller. That's what I believe. So, with Jaylan calling Fallon a groomer and the internet believing him, I cannot understand how so many people would sit there and not look at the facts that Jaylan also made a conscious decision to get involved with a married woman and then call this woman a groomer, and people are going to go for it. And then when the burden was too much, he was like, I have to get out of here. I was groomed. This relationship is not working. When initially there were things that he could have used to analyze the situation before going into it. He wasn't forced into this relationship, honey. He saw something in it for him. And when he ventured into that relationship, he wasn't getting what he believed he would have gotten. He thought that they would have blown up. He thought that they would be the hot thing. That lasted for a little while. But the moment that the attention started dying down, I believe Jaylan didn't want to put in that work. He didn't want to work at the pace that Fallon wanted him to work at to build a family unit, one that is as successful as Portia and as Simon. So I believe that Jaylan crumbled because he really doesn't have that strength and maturity. And I believe that Fallon was pushing him too hard to get to that state of maturity, and he wasn't ready. And as such, he's looking at Fallon as a groomer, and he's telling people that, oh, she was pushing me, she wanted me to do this, so people are there telling this man, oh, you were being groomed, when the reality is Fallon has a certain level of expectation that doesn't align with what Jaylan has. And that is why their relationship did not work. No one assessed anything. They just went ahead, moved blindly, and it was bound to fail from the get-go. So I believe it's wrong for him to be calling this woman a groomer, and people going in on her, believing this man and what he's saying without context and having all the details. People need to look at facts instead of just running with what may seem as it sounds. Because if you analyze everything from what we know, you can tell that this man, Jaylan Banks, is just what you call weak. He's weak, and that's just the reality. And any real woman could have seen him crumbling in this relationship and knew that it wouldn't have lasted, just like Simon and Portia. We already know that. It's not as though we're speaking bad into people's life. Based on Simon's history, the relationship with Portia is not going to last. The only reason why they're able to get to this far is because Portia has that celebrity status and people are, into Portia Williams like that. If Simon was married to another woman who is not in the celebrity limelight, he would already be bored and uninterested. But Portia's celebrity status is what Simon is in love with, not Portia, the woman herself. And that's what I observe with Simon and his behavior. It's not Portia. Portia is head over heels in love with Simon. Simon just loves Portia. And that is why, as time passes, you may see them drifting their separate ways, or they can go through their challenges and become stronger at the end of each challenge, which can form the basis for a long-term, happy, lasting marriage. And that's as I see it. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know, what are your thoughts? And while you're at it, give this video a big thumbs up, share if you care, and see you all later. Bye, guys.